Hello, ladies and gents, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities, and welcome back to another Doctor Who review. And today's Doctor Who review is Absolution. So, what is Absolution about? Absolution is a absolutely thrilling tale. The Doctor, Charlotte, and Cr'izz are wandering through the vortex when Cr'izz is taking time to himself once again in his room when souls begin to speak to him. But halfway through his meditation, he is interrupted by Charlotte, and Charlotte decides to break a piece of Cr'izz's jewelry that he pretty much gets very annoyed at her over, and she manages to open up the souls. This causes the TARDIS to go into a ruckus, and the Doctor then explains to his two companions that he believes essentially that they have landed between hell and purgatory somehow. This is because, on the scale of where he is in the universe, it's far beyond anywhere he's ever been before, and all they can hear from outside the TARDIS is tortured souls. The Doctor takes this as a hint that it's some form of purgatory, hell, Hades, or many other names, where souls have come and are in unrest. However, when Cr'izz goes missing, the Doctor soon realizes that there is more to the tale than meets the eyes. It turns out that down below on the planet, a species devoted by faith and revolution and pretty much just moving forward are in a conflict as they wait for the end of days. Cr'izz finds himself in the company of an outlander who claims to be able to have the ability of psychic projection amongst other powers. He also then claims to know Cr'izz and calls Cr'izz an outside prophet who has come to free them from this eternal damnation. He manages to manipulate Cr'izz throughout the whole story into believing that essentially Cr'izz will be the savior, not the fact that he wants Cr'izz to come and help him destroy everything. The Doctor, however, is on the other end of this kind of barrier that Cr'izz can't get through at the time, and it turns out that the Doctor and Charlotte find themselves in the company of a man who is the complete opposite. This man is very harsh and brutal and doesn't seem to want to mingle with people. But it also turns out that this man explains that there was an experiment a long time ago, and when the experiment went wrong, his missus turns into a beast, who is then locked away forever so that he could not disappoint his daughter to the reality of the situation. It also turns out that his missus was having an affair with another man, and it also turns out that this other man just so happens to be the man who is manipulating Cr'izz. Cr'izz points out to the Doctor later in the story the fact that his people had been trying to make him a god, and by this definition, the man who has been manipulating Cr'izz begins to blame the Doctor for Cr'izz not becoming this deity. This prophet believes that the reason that Cr'izz didn't succeed is because Cr'izz was taken outside of his own universe. They believe that maybe if he had stayed in his own universe, he would have ascended to godhood. However, at the end of the story, when Cr'izz is on his dying legs before he passes away, he forgives the Doctor for taking him out of his own divergent universe, and more importantly, he essentially says that Aberretto was wrong. Cr'izz was not weaker because he left that universe, but he was given the gift of time. And most importantly, he was given the gift of knowledge. Cr'izz then turns into dust in the Doctor and Charlotte's hands, and the pair of them go back to the TARDIS. Charlotte is grieving over the death of her best friend that she also considered a brother, and the Doctor seems a little bit unfazed. This makes the relationship between Charlotte and the Doctor very tense, as they're not quite sure how much more they can take of one another. The Doctor just gets on with his life as he points out to Charlotte the fact that people just go in his experience. However, in Charlotte's experience, she finds herself conflicted and annoyed that he doesn't at least take a moment to sit and smell the coffee. So, Doctor Who, Absolution, what did I think of this audio overall? I absolutely love the payoff. I've adored the character of Cr'izz since I first watched him slash listened to him in these audios. Uh, just purely on the basis that Cr'izz is so unhuman and he doesn't have a problem with admitting that. Karras doesn't always pick up on humor. He can be witty, but he might not necessarily get references. But I do feel like as we got towards like the end of Karras's arc here with Memory Lane and everything, Karras's time in the TARDIS definitely proves that since he's left the Divergent universe, his mind has become so open to the ideals and ideas of the Doctor and Charlotte's universe. I also really love how he sacrifices himself in this. Everything Cr'izz does in Absolution is to protect his friends. Whether he becomes greedy with the power as it tries to overpower him, he still is trying to fight a losing battle, no matter what happens, so that Charlotte and the Doctor can live happy. He points out to the Doctor previously how he couldn't get through the barrier, but then he also points out how he has control of this wild beast. You see, there's this giant beast in the story that seems to be the kind of, you might as well say, it's the equivalent of like just a giant kind of Minotaur sort of business, and it was intended to destroy the world, but Karras kind of flips the script and helps save it instead. Karras only dies really in this story because he protects Charlotte and the Doctor from a beam of ray that was used to essentially wipe out most of the population and hopefully save the other half. So Karras is, I mean, Conrad Westmas absolutely kills it in this audio. The way he comes across and the way that he presents his character throughout his story arc is just so brilliant. And as I said, the payoff overall. So, what do I give Doctor Who Absolution? Honestly, I give it a 10 out of 10. Just for being such an absolute incredible story. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next Doctor Who review. Until then, goodbye, stay beautiful, and have an incredible night.